The great American experiment. The fabric of our nation was born when our founding fathers came together and implemented a social and political system unlike the world had ever seen before. Free to express their genius, individual Americans, men and women, would perform and continue to perform such miracles of invention, construction, and production as the world has never seen. The system that we created for ourselves here, in which imperfect men and women constantly strive to become better and improve ourselves, is one to truly marvel. Disease, healthcare, food, living conditions, schools, community injustices, injustices on foreign soil, the list goes on and on. You name it. If it's negative, millions of Americans from every corner of the country are working to fix it. No matter what the issue is, someone, somewhere is working so that future generations do not have the same problems. We are nearing 300 years of the great American experiment. And make no mistake about it, since day one, we chose to bring these guys with us. We chose to bring them into our homes. We chose to let them sleep in our beds. We chose to call them family. They help our ill in hospitals. They help us in military, in war. They help our police here at home. And they give us unconditional love. And in return, they are entitled and deserve the best of what we have to give them. They deserve life. They deserve happiness. They deserve safety. And they deserve love. Not some of them, all of them. Not just the cats and dogs in our homes or the ones in the movies, all of them, especially the weak, especially the homeless, the elderly, especially the ones who end up in tough situations. There is nothing inherently different between the cats and dogs that I'm going to talk to you about today and the ones that we have at home. Circumstance is the key differentiator. I am here to bring to your attention a huge, huge problem that we can no longer turn our back on as a community. This presentation is about the Humane Society of Broward County, the shelter on Griffin Road, not the government shelter. Over 4,000 cats and dogs have been put to death at the Humane Society of Broward County this past 12 months. Almost 100,000 cats and dogs have been put to death under current leadership. The Humane Society of Broward County continues to perform as one of the worst shelters in the entire United States of America, and that's a fact. We can no longer choose to ignore these lives as being lost with no hope to save them. We can no longer let a few people behind the scenes proclaim that there's an overpopulation problem in our community, or that these animals are somehow different than the ones in our homes, or that we just cannot save them all. These lives are a part of the great American experiment, just like we are. We put them here, and we will not let excuses and complacency stop us from giving them a chance at life. We owe it to them. And here are the facts. All right, so if there's one slide where I can have your full attention on, it's the slide of the day. These are the problems. 4,136. That is the number of animals that were killed at the Humane Society from August of 2016 until July of 2017. 4,136. 3,200 or more, I'm being generous here, or more could have been saved if proper programs were in place. Out of that 4,136, 2,505 cats and dogs were counted as owner-requested euthanasias. Pretty much where the Humane Society says it's the owner's fault, everything is on them, we killed them, and we're counting them as thus. That 2,505 number is more than any other shelter in our entire country. I mean, think about that. Literally, from everything that we've read and researched, and we did it with a lot of animal shelters in pretty much every single big community in the country, they kill and label more animals as owner-requested euthanasia than any other shelter in the country. If that's not a cause for concern or to take action for them to improve, then I don't know what is. This next number that I'm going to share with you, I'm asking all of you after you leave here tonight to not only remember it for yourselves, but also to share it with all of your friends. This is the scariest number of them all, if you're a dog lover. 0.46. Approximately 1 out of 2 local dogs that end up in the Humane Society, not only are they killed, but they're killed and they're labeled as owner-requested euthanasias. So if you walk into the Humane Society, or if your friend walks into the Humane Society and they heard about how great they are, you can bet on there almost being approximately a 50% chance that that dog, A, is going to be killed, but B, is going to be counted as owner-requested euthanasia. And here's the most messed up part of them all. We did extensive an analysis on their statistics, and we found out that these 2,505 animals were not counted in their intake. So if you walk into the Humane Society and you surrender your dog, if you're a local dog owner, you can count as a 50% chance that they're going to kill the dog, and then they're going to label it as owner-requested euthanasia, and they're not even going to count the dog as intake. I mean, that in itself, they should not have the right to do that because they're a private business. I mean, give me a break. Like, you can't do that. You just cannot do that. Okay? So if you have friends out there, or anybody that is thinking about taking a dog to the Humane Society and they live here in Broward County, there's a 50-50 chance that dog is dead. The next number, 1,925. That is the number of dogs that the Humane Society imported during the same time frame. 1,925. So when you hear all the cute stories about, oh, we're rescuing these dogs from Puerto Rico, which is great. Puerto Rico is a disaster zone, and those dogs need help. But when you're killing 1 out of 2 local dogs that are coming from owners here, and you're consistently importing animals from outside of Florida every single month for the past who knows how many years, that is a business model. That is not a local animal shelter business model. It's one where animals are not put first. And that has to change. The next two is the adoption rate and the rescue rate. If you look at the Humane Society of Broward County, and if you compare it per capita, if you compare their adoptions per capita, whether you know them or not, whether you like their marketing or not, there is absolutely no doubt that their per capita adoption rate is at the very best mediocre if you compare it to other shelters in the country. And one of the excuses is because, oh, they have competition, there's rescues here and shelters. And it's true, but there's rescues and shelters in every other community also. There's competition everywhere. Their rescue rate is one of the worst in the country. The Humane Society virtually has no partnerships. They have their token partnerships where they bring in a couple of rescues. But if you look at the number of animals that could be saved by partnering with outside groups, the Humane Society is one of the worst in the country and the most closed off. And finally, the CEO, Christopher Augustino, makes $230,000 a year. Okay, now I'm all about free market in America, and we know we're all in America. There should be absolutely no reason why anybody should dictate what another person makes. But when you're performing like he is, and you have all of these numbers that rank first or near first in really bad terms, and you still make more than any other shelter director in the country, you know we have a problem. If this was any other industry, I don't care what it is, whatever industry you work in, if you don't perform well, that doesn't mean you get paid more. It doesn't mean that you get paid as a top performer. We should let performance and performance metrics dictate how much he gets paid. And right now, that's how much he's making, and perks. So, what I just told you, these numbers are what's really going on within the Humane Society. Beyond the marketing, beyond our personal relationships, the news stories, this is what we're here to change. And I will not stop, and our team will not stop until that changes. So, those are just the symptoms. Here's what's really going on at the Humane Society. They have incomplete and insufficient programs. They don't have a behavior program, or if they do, it's really tiny. They have an incomplete and insufficient upper respiratory program, an incomplete and insufficient ringworm program, an incomplete and insufficient program to deal with age issues and harder to adopt issues. And this is all because of their culture and their leadership. The Humane Society management is a team of authoritative people. They are not leaders. They are there because they are authoritative and they're maintaining the status quo. If we had leaders in place, there would not be incomplete and insufficient programs, and all of those numbers there would not exist today. But we're missing it. So the final result is what you see here. If you compare the Humane Society numbers, their intake, the number of animals they killed, counted as owner requested euthanized, they beat every other shelter locally, and like I said, the overwhelming majority of the shelters nationally, which really, really sucks. The reason this is because they've all become desensitized. There's a lot of good people working within there that can't really say anything or do anything yet. They're not happy with what's going on, but they've all become desensitized. When you start to euthanize every single day, you have to justify it to yourselves to keep killing animals. And when somebody questions that, it's very tough for you to go back on what you've told yourself for years that is okay to do. So you become desensitized. All right, we don't got to go through all these. I'm just going to read a couple of their main excuses. The Humane Society claims that they are providing a public service for owner-requested euthanasias. So not only do they have the highest owner-requested euthanasia number in the country, not only are they counting 1 out of 2 dogs approximately as owner-requested euthanasia from local owners, but they're labeling this as a public service blatantly in our public records request, and they're not counting these animals or intake, and they're literally sticking behind their arguments that this is a public service. That's one. They have the Black Velvet Club, which is supposed to adopt beautiful black animals, which is great. They do adopt beautiful black animals, but the program is incomplete. It's insufficient. It doesn't help all of the cats. I was personally told by a manager who works there that they kill cats because the cats are black. In 2016, this was a year ago. So great, you got the program, but you have to save every cat. You can't market one program, save some of the cats, and then the whole community thinks you save all of them. So, that's it for the negative stuff. Now it's time to focus on solutions. In order to change all of this and getting past all of the negative, yeah, thank you. Good job. So in order to change all of this and to focus on solutions, which is why we're here, we all had to know what was going on. And I get emotional. It's okay if we get emotional because cats and dogs are dying needlessly and they're not going to stop unless we take action. So how do we fix it? How do we get to the actual solutions? The first is compassionate and willing leadership. There is absolutely no doubt the best shelter directors in America and the highest performing shelters in terms of life-saving, they have directors who are compassionate and they're willing to go out there and learn the best practices. You need a compassionate and willing leadership. And that's why we're running our campaign to remove and replace theirs, because we just don't believe they're ever going to get there. You have to be able to learn, and you got to be able to understand and implement programs. That's an absolute necessity. Now, number 3 is absolutely key. This is how we get from killing 3,200 or more of animals that we can save to killing just under 800 or less. Again, I'm being generous. The first is sufficient adoptions. If the Humane Society of Broward County had a sufficient adoption program, we're going to see 1,200 animals per year that we can save that are currently not being saved. And that is absolutely huge. If you consider their location, which is East Broward, and we actually put in a proposal about this, but we were rejected. If you look at their location and Broward County Animal Cares, every animal shelter and rescue is in East Broward. Nothing exists in Southwest Broward or Northwest Broward. If the Humane Society put in an adoption center, or maybe 2, in Southwest and Northwest Broward, you're going to see at a very minimum 1,200 animals additional per year that are going to be saved at those 2 complexes. And they're not going to cost more money. These are revenue neutral or profitable operations that are proven to be by Kansas City, Missouri, who has one of the best adoption programs in the entire country. They proved it works, so we can follow their footsteps. The second thing, space and time for easily treatable animals. Forget the stories about I took my dog or cat to the Humane Society to be euthanized as an end-of-life service. Forget that. That happens. It's true. We know it's true. They do provide that service. But most of the animals that are taken there are not taken there for that reason. Most of the animals, a lot of them, that are being killed right now, they need space and time to recover from upper respiratory, which is the cat version of a cold, or the dog and cat version. Ringworm, which is literally a little fungus that you need space and time to heal. It's not dangerous. It's not going to kill anybody or other cats. It just needs space and time to heal. If they had partnerships within the community, like Broward County Animal Care does, then they would be able to save another 1,200 animals. Their behavior program. The Humane Society of Broward County, and I was there, I spent 3 days in their intake section, so I got to see what goes on myself for 3 days, so I have facts. Dogs and cats, and it was really tough sitting there throughout a number of situations. I'll give you an example. A dog comes in, this dog sits in the intake section for 2 seconds. A staff member tells the person that this dog is going to be put to sleep because the dog was barking. And the staff person wants to hear from a higher up. So the person who was at the intake section goes in the back, gets a euthanasia tech. The euthanasia tech comes outside, looks at the dog barks at him. He just puts his hand like that and walks away and says, this dog will be put to sleep right away. So that's a classic example of what they're counting as owner-requested euthanasia. They told the person at the door that this dog is going to be killed because he's not worthy of behavior, and when the person was there, he totally broke down, him and his wife. They walked outside, they cried for 5 minutes, they came back and said, oh well, just like most people do. Oh well, take him. Now, it's your responsibility. But when that dog is surrendered to the Humane Society of Broward County, and it becomes their property, their excuse can no longer be that the person agreed to it. That is not good enough. The owner, in 99% of cases, owners are not qualified to make medical decisions. You cannot put on your statistics that the owner requested this when most owners are not qualified to make medical decisions. That dog is your property and it becomes your responsibility. Its life becomes your responsibility. If they had a behavior program, that would all end. 600 more animals. Sufficient medical care. Cat or dog comes in with a broken leg. Somebody comes in that they don't have enough money to get a medical procedure for their animal. That animal is put down. Of course, that's owner requested euthanasia. But is it really when you could have performed a procedure on the animal with equipment that you already have, that most shelters don't even have yet, but you have it? Why not perform the medical procedure and put that animal in foster? Another 200 animals. If you add all of these animals together, you can see that most animals can and should be saved. And this is how you do it. So the real reasons why so many animals are dying are not because there's not enough homes. It's not because of any of these other reasons. It's because there are insufficient programs, incomplete programs at the Humane Society that could save them. If they did this, I mean, how awesome would it be to get a lot of marketing, a lot of good publicity, to go out there and push yourself and do better? If they did this, here's what would happen. The Humane Society that you see today is reminiscent of a shelter from the 80s. They have not advanced whatsoever. Outside of decreasing their intake, the Humane Society has not advanced in anything significant or substantial. If they put these programs in place, they're going to move forward to a 21st century shelter, and in no time, they're going to be modern life saving. They're going to have an over 95% save rate. There's absolutely every reason in the world to do this. And the end result is going to be there's going to be a 95% save rate for cats. We're going to have ethical, top-tier programs in our community. There's going to be competition, and we'll have a truly humane society. So, 30 days. If they got it together and they really wanted to save lives, if this was really about putting the animals first, they can do this in 30 days. Anybody walking in there already has the infrastructure, the people, everything that they need to do this within 30 days. So we're challenging them and everybody, asking everybody to challenge them to take the 30-day challenge. So thank you. Now we're going to hand it over to Phil, and Phil's going to talk about No Kill, the No Kill movement, and what they're doing in Indiana.
My name is Phil Beckerpaw. I'm the director of the City of Muncie Animal Care and Services Department in Delaware County, Indiana. And everything that Amy just went over is very similar and very reminiscent to what the situation that I walked into in January of 2012 when I became the director of our shelter. Except it sounds like Broward County has a lot more resources than what we have. We didn't have a veterinarian on staff. We had a very small staff. We're completely open in mission. Just very, very similar. Very lack of vision, a lack of leadership, and honestly, the problem is apathy. It is so much easier to kill an animal than to adopt out an animal, to find a rescue resource. So apathy is the largest problem right now in animal sheltering. And you know, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, if you're dedicating your life to this mission, then it seems like you would want to do the right thing. Nobody should leave the day feeling good about killing an animal. And let's be real clear, you're not euthanizing. If you walk up to a dog that just comes in, it's terrified, it's in a brand new building, you walk up to it, put your hand in front of it, it might growl because it's scared. If I'm in a new building and somebody walks up to me and puts their hand in my face, I'm going to come back at them. I mean, I don't think I should be killed. So that's being killed for that. That's not euthanasia. Euthanasia is a kind death. Ringworm, incredibly treatable. No big deal. I wrestled in high school, I got ringworm. Shouldn't kill me for it, you know? So that's ridiculous. Upper respiratory can be easily prevented in a shelter if you have a plan. We have had upper respiratory with our cats in probably 2.5 years with just some basic preventative measures. So we've taken a lot of cats. So when I took over, we had around a 51% save rate on day one. Immediately there was a culture change that was needed. The staff was incredibly in low spirits. They had no pride in what they did. They were a laughing stock of sheltering in Indiana and sheltering in East Central or the Midwest. Just a really poor reputation. It was a dog pound type facility, just cinder block walls, stunk. I mean, it was just everything you would imagine, of the 1950s or a 1920s animal shelter is what I walked into. So the first thing we did, we reached out to people like you. We talked to our community and said, what do you want? I don't know that no kill was my goal right away. My goal was to have a progressive shelter that did everything that they could to save as many animals as they could. And so we reached out to people and asked what they wanted out of their shelter, because after all, it was their shelter. It's not my shelter. I'm not paying for it. It's theirs. So we sat down with our staff and we talked about what we had going for us and what we had going against us. And we developed a marketing plan on how we can achieve all of our goals. And so within months, our adoption rates skyrocketed, our euthanasia rates dropped, and all of our intake increased by around 100% in our first year. So this can be done, and the excuses that are there are incredibly invalid. There are about 80 million people in the United States that are looking to add a pet. There are about 60 million people that have pets. So we want them to adopt our pets in our shelters. And so we need to make them as marketable as possible. And we have to be constantly reaching out to our community and asking and having an open dialogue with them and not hiding behind, those are fake stats. I mean, just because somebody walks in with a pet and they talk the surrendering person into euthanizing it, they're not really there to have their pet euthanized, to have it euthanized. And in many ways, that's probably the most responsible thing that many of these pet owners have done, is to bring it to the shelter and surrender it, because they can't obviously take care of it, and that's how neglect happens. And and a lot of shelters will blame victims. People dump these pets off to our shelter, and people are horrible. Well, our job is to take care of their pets. That's what we do. And if we aren't doing that, then those pets are becoming neglected, and we're only furthering the problem.
Go ahead.
So having that open dialogue with the community is incredibly important. And as far as why your euthanasia rates would be as high as they are with the resources that you have available, it truly is just a problem of I can't imagine making $230,000 a year and keeping my job with I can't imagine making $230,000 a year. But I can't imagine keeping my job for 20 years with providing these kind of statistics, and my board or whomever is in charge of, maintaining me as an employee. I just can't imagine, going to bed at night feeling good about what you're doing. So, creating a vision with the community and outlining exactly what needs to be done. There's no reason to adopt or to euthanize treatable animals. There's no reason. I mean, it's a perfect example. We had a dog yesterday at the shelter right before I left. He was adopted. His name was Rocco. He was adopted to a wonderful home, and he had a prolapsed anus when he came in. And so we fixed the prolapsed anus, and it was around $1,400 surgery. We don't have a vet on staff, so we had to go to a specialty clinic. We had that done. Well, it prolapsed again. We had it fixed one more time. Well, he came back in again yesterday with the owner. The owner's in tears. This just keeps happening. So we've had two $1,400 surgeries on one dog to save this one dog. So now that's a decision that has to be made. So that's a decision that we need to decide, is it comfortable for this dog to live? Would we be doing this dog a favor? This is going to continue to happen. So those are the conversations where euthanasia comes into play. Kennel cough is not a conversation where euthanasia comes into play. A broken leg isn't a conversation where euthanasia comes into play. So it's easy to make that excuse, though. Let's say, well, there's nothing we can do. We're out of money. We have $25,000 a year to spend on our pets. That's all we get. So I have to raise anything additional. So Rocco, like that doesn't even cover our vaccines. So I have to do my job. My staff has to do their job. My staff has to believe in my vision, and I'm so fortunate that they all do. And you also have, one thing that Andy talked about was the lack of partnerships you have with rescues. You have to have and cultivate those partnerships, not only here in Broward County, but all across the state of Florida, and honestly all across the United States. We work with rescues all over the United States, and even sometimes in Canada. We're a little closer to Canada than you guys, but that's the biggest chance that an animal has to get out of my shelter is through a rescue. We send more out to rescue than we do adoption, than we do reclaim, anything. We have what I think is probably he called me the best shelter director in the country. I am not. I got the award, but that award is because of my staff. I do believe that I have the best rescue coordinator in the country. She is amazing and committed and really can get anybody out that comes in. I mean, we don't euthanize we have a behaviorist that comes in 2 days a week that works with our not only behavioral dogs, but our behavioral cats. We are launching a brand new foster program that we're taking. I think in the past, that sheltering fostering was focused on injuries and special needs, but I think we're going to try to transition to fostering on larger dogs with behavioral problems that are showing very poorly in the shelter, that need a little bit more time, that would possibly be labeled as aggressive and be euthanized, and feral cats that or cats that appear to be feral, that come into the shelter and are displaying what appear to be aggressive behaviors, but in reality are just fear-based behaviors. So the sheltering field is changing all the time. There are always new ideas. There's always new research, but you have to be willing to reach out and find that research and then add to that research. I am very, very fortunate in this field to have great mentors. Nathan Winograd of the No Kill Advocacy Center is one of my very top mentors. I'm always reaching out to him. And people are always willing to help. Dr. Ellen Jefferson at the Austin Pets Alive in Austin, Texas is also a great resource. And Austin is a good example for Broward County to model after. Austin has a bigger population or has less of a population than you. They have about right under 1 million people. You guys, I think, have about 1.9. But their intake is considerably higher than Broward County. They took in around 9,000 more animals than what you guys did here. And their euthanasia, or their save rates across the board are around 98%. So when people say that it can't be done, they're statistically wrong. It can be done, it has been done, and you should strive, everyone should strive for that. And even if you still believe that your problems in your community are more unique than any other community, which they may be, I don't know. I mean, there's obviously a hell of a big difference between Muncie, Indiana, and Broward County, Florida. I mean, there's going to be a huge difference there. But to say that that can't be done is wrong, because it has been done and it can't be done. And even if you continue to say that it can't be done, I'll kind of leave with this, and we'll get into the questions and answers. But why not try? Why not try to save more? I mean, what's the argument against trying? even if you say, oh, no-kill can't be done, no-kill shelters are hoarders, no-kill shelters just send to irresponsible rescues, no-kill shelters adopted whoever, I mean, but we're saving lives. I mean, and none of those arguments are true. So I guess, even if you don't believe that you can do it, you should still try, and that's obviously not happening in this case. So I'm going to get back to Andy.
Really quickly, can you talk about the ordinance?
Oh, my ordinance. Yeah, my little baby. Okay. So a few months back, I was not sure how long I was going to stay in my current position. I was very nervous that when I left, we would revert to right back where we were before. That the vision would go. It would be above a job. That meaning I'm a political appointment, and so oftentimes in the past with my position, it's always given to Bubba. I mean, Bubba needs a job, and Bubba's going to run the animal. Bubba's going to run the dog pound. Okay, that's what they call him. So I was very nervous that if I did decide to leave, which obviously I didn't, that it would revert back. And so I contacted a few people that had done similar things, where they had come to shelters and then got everything on track and then left. And I asked, how they kept it from reverting. And everyone kept saying, well, it reverted. It went right back after I left. I mean, so I thought, well, there had to be some way to do that. And so I thought, well, we can legislate this. We can make this so that the dogs aren't being sprayed with water hoses while they're in kennels. We can make it so that the dogs are eating every day, which was not happening before. So we can make it so that when cats come in that are feral, that they're released and they're not immediately euthanized while they're still in the live trap, which was being done before. We can make it so that if there is a rescue that wants to pull an animal that is in danger of being euthanized, that they have to give that animal to that rescue. That euthanasia is off the table. That if there's someone that wants it, that person gets it. Because why would we keep it and kill it when somebody wanted to take it? Which happens. That guarantee that happens here. There are people that how many? 4,136 animals died. There are 4,136 people in this county that would have taken those animals. I guarantee that. Now, some of those animals, I'm sure, probably that was in their best interest to be euthanized. I mean, I'm not going to discredit that entire amount of number. But that's a pretty large number for that intake. And that's an incredibly large owner. We don't even do owner requests. We stopped about 3 years ago because I don't think it's our responsibility. But so also we made it so that we cannot drop below 90%. So if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, then my shelter will stay this way until the end of time. And so we did that. It's called the most progressive piece of legislation in the country. But the difference between me and our shelter and our staff is we're looking to go to that next level now. We don't want to stop right there. We want to go and we want to figure out what's another way that we can succeed. So, you're okay. Get out of here. No, I'm just kidding. So that's our ordinance.
Nice. Thank you. So we can do a short or a long Q&A session. Does anybody have any questions specifically in regards to the Humane Society or no kill in general? Yes.
I did.
Hi.
Hi. No, I did. I was curious because obviously I know you pretty well, and I know that my wife works with you. But the Broward County one is a for-profit shelter, correct?
Well, it's a 501c3 not-for-profit organization.
Okay.
It's labeled as a private shelter, but they are the public at large owns nonprofit organizations, and there are technically a not-for-profit organizations.
So a nonprofit but private. What would make
Yes.
it a nonprofit public? What's the difference, I guess?
So the difference is, as a 501c3 organization, you are not affiliated. They claim that they're not affiliated with the government. They don't take any government contracts, and they rely mostly on private donations. But the donations are still from the public. A 501c3 organization is technically a public organization owned by the public at large, ran by a board of directors. If you have a director who's been there for over 20 years and their bookkeeper for over a decade at least, and their top people being all friends for decades, you are no longer serving the mission. It is no longer owned by the public at large with donations from the public. It becomes a matter of maintaining the status quo, riding on your accomplishments when you started, and not keeping up with the times. And we got to change, whether they're public or private, technically, however it's labeled. Anybody else? Yes?
I'm just curious, of these donations that come in and you see in the newspaper, the society pages and all of these galas they have and they collect all this money, do these businesses, and they're large, I think Matthew Stewart's, I think there's a lot of them, do they know where this money is going?
Well, that's a good point. So, this is just my opinion. Animal shelters are different from any other, what I believe, any other business in America, any other industry. There are no performance metrics. There is nothing to perform or to live up to. Fundraising is based off of feel-good stories. You tell a good story and people give you money because they expect that you're doing the best that you can with that money. So these businesses and everybody that's donating to the Humane Society, they're donating because of feel-good stories and some facts. The Humane Society did adopt out a lot of animals last year. Even though most of the dogs did come from out of state, they were still adopted. They did adopt out a lot of cats. But it's not about adopting some animals and killing the rest. It's about every single life that goes in there, and people just don't know what's going on. It's about feel-good stories. That's why they're raising money.
Maybe they should be targeted. Maybe these donors should be targeted.
I'm sure they will. I mean, so right now I'm at the stage of educating, but our campaign moved through stages. Once we get through this stage, we will go through every means possible to end the status quo at the Humane Society of Broward County. And that, mark my words. Yes?
With them being a private corporation, what can be done to force them to change their directors?
Well, first is awareness. Obviously, we're doing a lot of awareness. You can target their finances, which I personally don't believe in yet because they do a lot of good in the community. I just don't see why they can't change the big problems and still continue to do the good in their community. So you can raise awareness, you can attack the finances, you can do a host of different strategies. But I firmly believe most people are good internally, and we're trying to get them to become good, bring out the best in them. Yes?
Me?
Yeah?
This is a question for Phil, actually. I was reading the poster up there about the German Shepherd. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I was reading the poster about the German Shepherd. That's a real story over there where it looked like someone brought their pet. It's kind of what you were talking about earlier. It looked like someone brought their pet in that they rescued and thought that they were going to adopt them. And she found out through a volunteer that works at the Humane Society, found out like a year later that the dog was killed, not euthanized, like you said.
Right.
3 days later, because it failed the food aggression test, and she said it cried for like a year, saying if I'd have known that, I'd have come back and gotten a dog. So like, is that something that could potentially happen?
In a lot of shelters, yeah, that will happen. I mean, your dog comes in, it's temperament tested right then. Right when it comes in, it's temperament tested, which is mind-boggling that they do it right when they come in. But yeah, a lot of shelters they will. And in our shelter, in that ordinance, we have to call you.
Okay.
Yeah, we call the finder, even if it's not your dog and you find a dog, we call you and say, hey, this dog or this cat or this rabbit or whatever it is has this problem. You know, our staff has come to deliberation that euthanasia is the end result, and you can save this animal right now. And then, yeah, so that's rare though.
Why wouldn't the Humane Society do that in your opinion?
It's easy. It's easier to put the dog down. It's easier to put the dog down and make a phone call.
It's always about how you
I swear, that's the only reason. I mean, it's way easier. Filling that needle is easier than picking up the phone.